And now let's speak to Vincent Warren, who's the Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Rights. Sir, thank you so much for joining us here on Al Jazeera. It was very interesting. We heard President Obama speak, and he called for national soul-searching over what's happened. What do you take him to mean by that?
Well, Barbara, this is one of those points where I disagree with the president. You know, the leadership moment here is not to call for calm, not to call for more dialogue and discussion and reflection. The leadership moment is to call for change. And the reason why people are so angry in Baltimore, it's not just because of the suspicious killing of Freddie Gray. It's also because the Baltimore Police Department has a long and torrid history of brutalizing people. Over a 3-year period, the city of Baltimore has paid $5.7 million to people who have been brutalized and beaten by the police department. So what we have here is a scenario where people are calling for change, and the reason why the confrontations are happening and the reason why people are angry and the reason why it goes from the oldest in the community to the youngest in the community is because they've all lived under terroristic reign by the Baltimore Police Department. So I actually think what we should be calling for is real change from the Baltimore Police Department. That's how we stop a lot of this stuff from happening.
I guess the president also said that this kind of violence detracts from many of the points that you've just made, but just broadening it out beyond Baltimore. I mean, we've really seen, I guess from an outsider's point of view, more and more of these cases coming out of the U.S. of, you know, police brutality towards young African-American men. Why do you think we're seeing all these cases now?
Well, for a couple of reasons. One is the proliferation of video. Everybody's got a camera, and so in a lot of these police interactions, there is video there, as was the case in New York City with the killing of Eric Garner, as was in South Carolina. So you're going to see a lot more interactions with the police that are problematic just because people are filming them. And we shouldn't get confused and think that the level of police violence is going up because the number of cameras are going up. What is actually happening is that people are capturing these things more. The second thing is that as starting in Ferguson and moving across the country, as you said here in the U.S., black communities in particular are looking back into their history and they're really demanding accountability. So we're seeing more of these incidents and we're seeing more protests because they're more visible, but I think also because people have really had enough. Baltimore hasn't seen this kind of unrest since 1968 when Martin Luther King was killed. And during that time, during that uprising, people were saying the same thing that they were saying now. They were calling for healing, they were calling for calm. But as we know 50 years later, that was a complex situation of structural racism that conversations weren't going to fix. It took legislation, it took concerted effort by policymakers, and frankly, it took people being on the streets and being very frustrated and angry about it to make the kind of change that we're seeing today.
But so, sir, what do you think it's going to take now to get change, the change that you were mentioning before?
Well, one thing that we shouldn't wait for is we shouldn't wait for people to not be angry. People are going to be angry for a very long time. And if you look at the police response from the Baltimore Police Department and other police departments around the country, the first thing they do when a suspicious killing happens or something's caught on video, the first thing they do is suspend judgment. And police departments across this country and in Baltimore really work as closed fraternal orders. They don't work as open branches of government. So what they do is they first get their stories straight. The investigation goes underground. People don't know what's happening. So the big change that can be made here, and I'm hoping we'll see this in a couple of days, is that the Baltimore Police Department will be open and honest about how their investigation is going, what's happening, to give people the confidence that these situations are really being investigated in a meaningful way. Most people in the United States, particularly black folks, don't think that the police can police themselves. That's what Baltimore is trying to do. That's why people are still angry.
Vincent Warren, Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Rights. Sir, thank you so much for sharing your views with us. Thank you.